Hi kindergarten, welcome back to Art with Miss Buchelt. Today we are going to get to see how do we add color into our shadow drawings. Now I saw some of you post your drawings and they look so cool, and I'm so glad that you found some really fun things to trace with your shadows. Like I saw some really cool dinosaurs and I thought that was super interesting, and I wish I had a dinosaur that I could draw in the shadow because that looked awesome. But I'm going to do with what I have, and I think it'll still be fun. So what I have here are my 3 drawings that you saw me do in our last video, okay? And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some color to these. So we're going to be using 2 different kinds of coloring tools. Okay, we're going to be using crayons or colored pencils, whichever you prefer, and watercolor paint. Remember, if you don't have watercolor paint, you can use the washable Crayola markers or any kind of washable marker, and you can draw a little bit of that color, then just use plain water and it'll turn it into paint. It's really cool. But I want to have 2 different kinds of coloring tools today because we want it to look like the object that we drew to have more detail than the background. Okay, so it's a little bit harder to find detail using watercolor paint. So we're going to use finding detail using our crayons or our colored pencils. So I'm going to start first with probably what I think is my most simplest one, okay, which is my apple. My apple's in a bowl. And we are going to be starting with our dry tools first. Okay, so dry versus wet, right? The watercolor paint needs water. Okay, so grab your dry tools first. And everyone's is going to be a little bit different. So it's going to be not having to copy Miss B necessarily, but just on your own, trying to figure out how can you add those details into your drawings. Okay, so Miss B is going to start by adding some color into my apples. Now, one thing you can do is apples have lots of different colors in them, right? So grab all the colors that you think you want your apple to have. Okay, like I'm gonna make mine kind of look like a Honeycrisp apple. So I'm gonna grab like orange, red, and yellow, and my stem is brown, so I'm gonna grab a brown here. Okay, so think of what object do you have? What colors do you need to use to make that object look more like what it is? For example, if you have a dinosaur that you drew, what color is your dinosaur? Do you see more than one color in there? If you see more than one color in your dinosaur, grab all of those colors from your crayon box or from your colored pencil box. And we are going to just color in our objects. So if I want my apple to have lots of different kind of colors in it, oops, that's not the right red. That is like a pinky red. Here we go. Here's my regular red. I'm going to start by putting in a little bit of red. And I'm not pressing very hard with my crayons because I want to do something called overlapping. Okay, overlapping is where you take a color and you color on top of the other color a little bit. And do you see what that does there? Is that does a nice transition, we call it. So it moves from orange to red, nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of orange on top of my red. Maybe over here, I'm gonna add another little spot of orange because remember, apples have different colors all over. I'm gonna overlap again with my yellow here to show that there is some yellow in this apple. And then I'm gonna switch back again to my red, and I'm gonna put some red over here. So I have all of my colors, and I'm just kind of going back and forth, trying to find some different details of my apple. Now, wherever I think that there's going to be a shadow, right? Apples, wherever there's a stem, if you look down into that stem, does it look a little bit darker? Yeah, it does. So I pressed a little bit harder with my red down there just to kind of create that dark shadow. Then I took my brown, and I want to use my brown to make my stem, maybe add some brown in my shadow of my apple. Okay, so I'm going to finish up all of my apples here using my 4 colors that I chose for my detail. added the details into my apples that I liked. And I added some black inside of my bowl. Now, the reason I did black inside of my bowl is because I want it to look like there's lots of space underneath these apples. And it looks like our apples are sitting in the bowl because we added the dark to it. You can experiment with adding black to whatever object you have as well. Anywhere where you think that object gets really dark, that's where you're going to want to add your black. And then I added, green is my favorite color. So Miss B just chose to do green for her bowl. And I just did that green all over the bowl. And so now I'm ready to do my background. Okay, that's where my watercolor paints are gonna come in. We are gonna be doing one color in the background, okay? Remember, we want what we did, our shadow drawing and the detail we just colored, we want this to be the emphasis, it's called. When you emphasize something, it makes it important. It's the first thing you want to look at, okay? We want our drawing to be the emphasis. So we want our background to be simple, not a lot of detail. Just like our apples have lots of detail, we don't want lots of detail in the background. So I'm going to pick a color that I like from my watercolor tray, and I'm going to paint all over the background. Now, one thing that's a fun tip is if you paint with just water first on your paper here, just plain water, all you have to do is take your watercolor paint, and just touch it, and it will spread everywhere. All right, so watch Miss B as I put water first, and then as I add the color, how it just spreads everywhere. Okay, so you'll see that I added blue into my background. So you saw that I put the water first, and then I dropped the color onto it, and it spread everywhere, and it was so fast, but really fun to see. Okay, so do you see my emphasis of my apples? Yep, how when the first thing you want to look at is the apples because there's the most detail. So that is what you're going to do, and you're going to repeat that with all of your shadow drawings. Okay, so each shadow drawing is going to have a different thing in it, right? Like I have a bowl with apples, I have my water can, I have a mug, I have a vase full of flowers. It's going to be the same steps, just using the different things that I drew with my shadows. I hope you guys have fun getting to add details and a background into your shadow drawings, and make Miss B really want to see what you're doing. So if you know how to, you can put a picture onto Seesaw, or ask nicely your parents if they will put one onto Seesaw, or to email it to Miss B, because I would really love to see how yours are turning out. All right, guys, I hope you have a really great day, and we'll see you next time.